Hey guys, welcome to the Alt-Shift-X Patron-only live stream for May. I'm sorry about the late notice on the time of the stream. It's tricky to work out the timings with this stuff sometimes, especially when we're juggling weekly videos. The reason why weekly videos are not something that we do all the time is that, first of all, episode reviews are a lot quicker to make than like theory or character analysis videos. But part of the reason why we don't make a video a week all the time is that it's really bloody crazy doing weekly videos. There's a lot of time involved and it gets hectic. And that's part of the reason why this stream was a bit last minute. But anyway, today there's sort of three things I'd like to chat about. And of course, this is a bit sort of Q&A. You can ask any questions at any time in the chat if you've got thoughts and questions about Westworld, Game of Thrones, Alt-Shift-X, whatever you like. But I want to talk about A Song of Ice and Fire videos that I think we'll get onto after Westworld, some topic ideas. We've mocked up some nice thumbnails of some Game of Thrones videos to make, also some non-Game of Thrones videos to make. Also got some Westworld thoughts about season 2 so far, and a couple of little thoughts about like Patreon rewards and stuff that we might change up. So you guys there? I can't see anyone in the chat, but it looks like there's a few online. So let's just talk about some Game of Thrones videos, because I know there's a lot of people very eager for more Alt-Shift-X Game of Thrones videos, and I am one of them. And what I've got here is a bunch of thumbnails for like the most requested and most popular Game of Thrones Alt-Shift-X videos. G'day Rhaegar, g'day Gemma. As voted in like the patron votes. So these are like the top most requested ones. And they all are great. They all could make really exciting, interesting videos. The most popular is the Doom of Valyria. These are arranged in order. The Doom of Valyria is like the most highly voted topic. And I think it'd make a great video. But I've got a funny feeling that it might not have much of a conclusion. Like the Doom of Valyria, like it'd be cool to compare it to like Atlantis and other sort of like mythological disasters. And it'd be interesting to talk about the way the show visited Valyria. Like that was something that I don't think anyone was expecting, was actually seeing the ruins of Valyria on the TV show. And the way they merged that with like Croyan and the Stone Men with Grayscale was kind of weird, I suppose. But yeah, there is all sorts of interesting sort of mystery and history to talk about with the Doom of Valyria. I guess we could do like a quick overview of the Empire of Valyria. You'd need to talk about the Empire of Valyria for a Doom video, and I think a lot of, especially show watchers, like wouldn't be all that familiar with that stuff. So that'd all be great. But in terms of like the big question of like what caused the Doom of Valyria, I doubt we're gonna get any kind of a firm answer on that, which might disappoint people. I think the most interesting sort of theory on the Doom of Valyria is the idea of the Faceless Men being involved, which we've already sort of talked about in like the Faceless Men video mostly. So that won't be new to a lot of people. But yeah, no, I think it'll still make a cool video. It's just, I think like a lot of, like you can see from these thumbnails that a lot of the remaining videos, a lot of the topics that we haven't covered yet, they tend to be the mysterious, magical stuff in A Song of Ice and Fire, which is all fun stuff, but like part of the, like it's not really the point of the mysteries to be answered and explained. I think they're there to add sort of flavor to the world, and I don't think we are likely to get, you know, many answers about a place like Ashai or Oily Black Stone, you know? So in some ways it feels counter to the point of these mysteries to try and explain them in an Alt-Shift-X video. But there's still certainly lots of cool stuff to play with in these videos. And Euron, the second most popular topic, that I think is the most like essential of all of these videos, actually, because I think Euron is so current and present of a threat in like the Winds of Winter, and Euron remains relevant in the TV show, so he's sort of doubly relevant. And still the Forsaken being like the most recently released Winds of Winter chapter, and the one I think it's the most, like, probably the most excited that the Song of Ice and Fire community has been in years has been over the Forsaken. So it's going to be really cool to sink our teeth into that. And Euron is just such a great baddie secondary character or tertiary character in this series. There's so much going on with him and his relationships with his brothers and with Theon and everything. And the religious element with the drowned god. I think Euron would make a fantastic video, a big video. But a really interesting one. I hope the stream quality is alright. It looks like it's sort of jumping up and down. It should straighten out in a bit. And yeah, true, Rega. I think Euron would fit with like the patch face that we've done, the patch face video that we've done recently. We've been doing a bunch of the mysterious things lately. So we could continue that theme after Westworld. The far east of Westeros is one of the most popular topics. People like the idea of doing like an overview of what the most mysterious and strange and exciting places in the far east of like in Essos are, and there are heaps of them. Like there are so many weird places, like the maze makers of Lorath and the Norvosi, and like all of those Lovecraftian, the cities of the winged men, and Yi Ti, which is like this whole Chinese empire with its whole own history, and like Sothoyos and all of those strange, jungly, cursed places. There's a lot of cool places like that out in Essos to talk about. So I think that sort of video would be cool. I mean, one of the aspects of that video would be that it would need a lot of art from the world of Ice and Fire, which just quietly remains, I think, perhaps a grey area in terms of copyright. But we sort of inevitably would need to use that art because there's really just no other visuals that we could use for a lot of those topics. But one of the other things about that video is that like it would feel like a bit of an info dump, I think. Like there's not a whole lot of like analysis to be done about like what the meaning of these places are. Like it's evident that they're there to create a bit of flavor and context and mystery. It exists as sort of decoration around Westworld, I think, those places. I mean, I guess some of these places do, they are relevant to the themes of like magic and prophecy and history. There is a lot of that stuff going on. Azor Ahai and all that stuff has, and one of the other aspects is like the post-apocalyptic vibe of Game of Thrones. Like it has been pointed out that the Far East has an awful lot of ruined cities, and like these deserts and like these wastelands. And you can get sci-fi Preston Jacobs about it and say that that's the result of a nuclear war and nuclear annihilation, and the long night was actually a nuclear winter and all of that. And whether you subscribe to that or not, the fact that there are all these ruins and this general feeling of like decline and decay and the glory days being behind us, I think that is a real sense that the Far East is meant to give you, which would be worth discussing. But yeah, still, I am a little concerned that it would feel a little bit like just like a read through of a bunch of wiki pages, because like it is just sort of a list of information, which is not really the preferred style of video for Alt-Shift-X. That said, the Valyrian Steel Swords video that we did a while ago, like a year ago, where we sort of listed each of the Valyrian Steel Swords, like that was sort of one of those info dump type videos, and it's one of the most successful Alt-Shift-X videos in terms of views. It's got like a few million views. Maybe a Far East of Westeros video would do similarly, which might be nice. Reggae reckons that George Martin just likes ruins. Yeah, that might be it. He's a bit of a melancholy one. I think is George. He likes George is a little bit like Rhaegar. I think George likes to sleep beneath the stars and in the ruins of Summerhall. Is what George likes to do. Johans reckons that the mysterious videos are the best videos. I like the mysterious videos, but I think the ones that I like the most are the ones that get at the meaning of A Song of Ice and Fire. To get at what the author's trying to say. And I think those videos tend to be the character analysis ones, like the Cersei video, the Jaime video, the Arya video. Like, I think what George is really writing about is about the struggles of human characters. And so that's why I love the character analysis videos. Although the mystery ones are where a lot of the theory crafting analysis stuff comes into play, which is of course fun. There's nothing more fun than trying to connect all those dots and figure out what the truth is amidst all these weird magical mysteries. It's like in Westworld at the moment with the Valley Beyond, Glory. The trying to figure out what all that means is a lot of fun, even though I think what Westworld's really about, just like Game of Thrones, is about the character struggles of people like Maeve, Bernard, Dolores. Although, as I think we'll get to, I do have some thoughts on the characters of Westworld Season 2, because I think there's some odd stuff going on there. So yeah, lots of big mystery stuff to talk about. Ashai is super popular topic. It could maybe just be a part of a general Far East, because it would be listed as one of these Far Eastern locations. I'm not sure whether or not Ashai needs its own video, because we don't really know very much at all about Ashai. I mean, you could, I suppose, talk about, the fact that Melisandre has been there. Miri Mazdur went to Ashai, if I recall rightly. So Ashai does have, like plot relevance. And, you could probably mention the whole idea of the prophecy to Daenerys about, to go west, you must go east. And there's lots of theories about Daenerys passing through Ashai. And I think in videos we've concluded that it's probably not that likely that Daenerys is actually going to go to Ashai. But you could talk about those theories in an Ashai video. Oily Black Stone is another one, which it is really bloody cool, the Oily Black Stone stuff. It is great talking about some of the most strange and mysterious locations in Song of Ice and Fire. The Sea Stone Chair, the foundation of the High Tower, the 5 forts, the Great Stone Frog in Sothayos or whatever. There are a lot of the Oily Black Stone topic touches on a lot of different interesting places, and it'd be really cool to talk about that. I feel like, just like the Doom of Valyria thing, like I doubt the Oily Black Stone is gonna be relevant to the plot in the end, really. I think it's just flavor. So again, like, I don't think we'll have any like firm game-changing conclusions there, but it will be really cool to talk about. I think a lot of these would be relatively quick videos to make, which might be a good thing. Like Oily Black Stone, Ashai, even the Far East, you could probably get them out fairly quickly. So it'd be cool to get a bunch out after Westworld, because we could hold a big Patron topic vote. Is probably the best way to do it, but we could also just jump straight into Ashai, Oily Black Stone to continue the sort of patch face vibe. Rhaegar's harp is a really popular topic, which refers to just like specifically the idea that maybe Rhaegar Targaryen left his famous harp in the tomb of Lyanna in the Winterfell crypts, is the main idea of that sort of family of theories, and that Rhaegar's harp will be instrumental. That's a pun. Will be instrumental in Jon Snow's identity as a Targaryen being proven, because that's one of the big difficult questions of of the R plus L equals J issue and Jon's parentage is that, okay, you've got the biggest mystery in Game of Thrones, you've got Jon's parentage, and maybe they'll find that out through visions, like as they do in the show with Bran finding out about Jon's parentage. But how do you prove that to the other characters of Westeros to make it actually relevant to the plot? There's the possibility that Hal and Reed will turn up and say, yep, Jon is Rhaegar's son, but is that going to be enough? The word of some random Crannogman lord? Maybe there needs to be some kind of physical proof. Maybe Rhaegar's harp will play into it. Although then again, I mean, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of ways it can go, and I haven't read up on the Rhaegar's harp theories lately. But that could be an interesting one to talk about. Duncan Egg. Oh well. Speaking of Rhaegar, Mance equals Rhaegar is one of the more popular video topics in Patron votes. And it's the most ridiculous of all of these video topics, easily, I think. It's the idea that Rhaegar isn't dead. He secretly went north, dyed his hair, and became Mance Rayder Beyond the Wall. And hey, Rhaegar sounds like Rhaegar, so, there's some proof. I'm not actually sure if the theory even tries to explain how Mance Rayder was the Lord Commander of the Knights. He was Lord Commander, right? Or was he just First Ranger? Let me look that up real quick. Was Mance Rayder... because Mance Rayder was in the Night's Watch. Did he have a rank in the Night's Watch, or was he just some random watchman? Yeah, maybe he's not... Yeah, he was a Ranger of the Shadow Tower. But yeah, he wasn't... Yeah, he wasn't Lord Commander. He wasn't... Okay. Yeah, so maybe Rhaegar faked his own death, went north, became Mance Rayder. Seems unlikely, but a lot of people love that theory, so it might be worth talking about. We haven't done a really goofy theory in a while. Like, we did, Euron equals Dario back in the day, and that's a crazy theory that we spent probably too much time on. Yeah, Fabian can confirm that Mance was a ranger at the Shadow Tower. Fabian, I believe, is ranked the number one Song of Ice and Fire trivia aficionado in the known universe. So thanks for backing me up there. But yeah, no, we've done some tinfoil in the past. We've done Euron equals Dario. We've done Bolton, the theory that Roose Bolton is actually a White Walker or something. Maybe it's time to go back to some of the OG tinfoil one day. Duncan Egg would be cool. Just to do a sort of summary and analysis of each of the Duncan Egg books, I think would be cool. Because there's a lot of people who, might be interested in Game of Thrones, may have even read the main series books, but haven't got around to reading Duncan Egg. And you could pretty easily put together a sort of a summary and analysis of each of the books, which I think would be really great for those people who haven't read it and for the people who have. Because, with the Bloodraven video talking about Maynard Plum being Bloodraven, there's lots of people who read the Mystery Knight and never realized that Maynard Plum is Bloodraven. So there are details like that you could talk about. Even the theory that Dunk was never knighted, that he's falsely pretending to be a knight, is something you could talk about. So there's all sorts of ideas with Duncan Egg that would be fun. Folks in the chat reckon we should do D plus D equals T, which is, of course, the theory that Tyrion is the son of Daenerys, I believe, because Tyrion's fetus time-traveled into Daenerys or something. Does that make Tyrion the son of Drogo, but there was some kind of an embryo swap and Rhaegar... Yeah, no, let's not even think about that one too hard. We could. That's always been sort of up the sleeve as a possible April Fool's video topic, because I think it's a set tradition now that we have to do some kind of ridiculous video for each April Fool's, and I really liked the leaked Game of Thrones Season 8 video we did this year, but maybe some year we'll do D plus D equals T. I think A lot of the Reddit folks will get a kick out of that. Dawn is one of those other big topics, Doran Martell and Dawn, because we haven't really done any videos about the Dawn plot. And it's a whole thing, guys. Ariane, Doran, the Sand Snakes, Oberon. There are all sorts of complicated theories about the role of Doran and his conspiracies and his plots. There are many people who argue that he's, this master schemer who everything is under control and he's secretly manipulating everything, and it's all part of his grand plan with Ariane and Quentin and Aegon and Daenerys, and he's taken over Westeros. To me, the most compelling thing I've read about Doran is the idea that those what are they, blood oranges? The blood oranges in the water gardens where Doran sits there all day and sits and schemes and sort of waits for his plots to ripen. But just like the blood oranges that splat on the ground of the water gardens, Doran has waited too long. His blood oranges have become too plump, and they have splattered onto the ground and failed, just like Quentin got roasted. So I strongly suspect that the conclusion of a Dawn video would be basically that Doran fucked up, and his plans will not come to fruition. But, maybe things will work out differently if Ariane marries Aegon and all that. And of course, it would have to be acknowledged the travesty of the Dawn plot in the show, which was not the most well received of Game of Thrones plot lines. So we'd probably acknowledge that. Melisandre would be a cool video. We know very little really about Melisandre as a character in terms of like what her history is. Like there's all that stuff about, Melanie, Lot 7, and how she's an ex-slave and all of that. Melisandre, we don't know much about, but her visions, I think, would take up a large part of a Melisandre video, just cataloging what Melisandre's visions are, what they mean, because some of them are pretty well worked out. Some of them are still quite mysterious and strange. Like honestly, the waking the stone dragon thing remains one of the most like baffling visions in A Song of Ice and Fire that still can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. There's no singular clear answer for, I think. So it would be a little bit like the Daenerys's visions in the House of the Undying video, where we went through and talked about all the different visions that Dany has. That was a cool video, I think. Like it does have a bit of that sort of info dump vibe, but it is analysis of what the visions all mean. So yeah, I think that might be what a Melisandre video is about, but it would also be about what she means as a character, and what her successes and failings mean, and what her fate as a character might be. It's always made the most sense to me that Melisandre will die, be sacrificed, by Jon, probably with the sword Longclaw, transforming Longclaw into Lightbringer, the fire inside Melisandre becoming part of the Lightbringer sword. That's always made the most sense to me. Melisandre being executed, presumably as like a punishment for her burning of Shireen or whatever. That's how I imagine Melisandre's fate, but there are lots of ideas out there that we could talk about. Lots of folks enthusiastic about the Dawn video. Yeah, I think the Dawn video would be great. It would be a very in-depth video. It would take time. There's a lot to reread and pore over, but it'll make for a really like complex, interesting video. I imagine it being a little bit like the Grand Northern Conspiracy video in terms of going over all these different moving parts and the interrelationships of them. It wouldn't be as complex or big as GNC, but it'd be a similar style of video, I think. The Hooded Man of Winterfell is one of those interesting little mysteries in Dance, which is one of the more divisive like Song of Ice and Fire theories. Like with most Song of Ice and Fire theories, there's like a general consensus that like, yes, Jon is the son of Rhaegar and Lyanna, and then usually there's a sort of like contrarian minority who are like, no, John is the son of whatever, Ashara and Ned, or whatever the theory is. The Hooded Man, there's lots of different opinions. Like, probably the coolest, edgiest answer to that question, who is the Hooded Man? Oh, the Hooded Man, by the way, is this guy who goes around murdering people in Winterfell when it's besieged by Stannis, and the winter's setting in, and the Freys and the Boltons, and everyone's at each other's throats. Barbary Dustin is stalking around the crypts. Barbary Dustin's great. But the Hooded Man goes around murdering people. And there's a lot of contention over who the Hooded Man is. And probably the most fun answer is that it's Theon. Like, Theon is the murderer and he doesn't know it. Like, we see this from Theon's point of view, but maybe his state of mind is so fractured that he doesn't even realize that he is going around murdering people like Jekyll and Hyde. That would be fun. House Dane is cool. Sort of goes without saying. House Dane are like, they feel a bit sort of anime to me. I don't know. Like, they're all beautiful, and they're all impossibly skilled with swords, and they got purple eyes and white hair, and so House Dane is Arthur Dane, the Sword of the Morning, and Ashara Dane, the most beautiful woman in the world. And they seem like they should sort of be the heroes, don't they? They sound like they're a lot like Targaryens, I suppose, being of Valyrian stock and being impossibly competent and pretty. But there are lots of mysteries surrounding House Dane, like the sword, Starfall. To this day, there's comments on the Valyrian Swords video all the time saying, why is Starfall not included? Or not Starfall, what's it called? Dawn. The sword is called Dawn, the sword of House Dane. And there's always people saying, why didn't you include Dawn in the Valyrian Steel Swords video? And Dawn does have, like, some properties that seem similar to Valyrian Steel, but from what we've been told, Dawn has been made from a meteorite that came to Earth, and that meteorite was forged into Dawn, and Dawn is like, it's like white and pale and strange in a way that makes it seem like it's probably not Valyrian Steel. Yeah, that's right, Cardinal. Starfall's the seat, Dawn is the sword. I suppose the sword was named after this. Well, I suppose Starfall was named for the fall of the meteorite from which Dawn was made. So, hell of a town to be named after a sword. Danes aren't Valyrian, Fabian Kester says. Aren't they? I don't know. I thought, because they've got the Valyrian features, don't they? Oh, you know, they're more Dawnish. Yeah, alright. Yeah, see, this is why we do research before we release Alt-Shift-X videos. But thanks for the correction, Fabian. Cool. Alright, character analysis videos. We said earlier that character analysis videos are probably the best Alt-Shift-X videos. That's how I feel. And while we're keen for a lot of these mystery videos, I think character analyses are something we need to do more of. So Bran has been relatively high up on some of these topic votes, but there's also some really big characters that we haven't done analyses on that I think could be great. So, you know, Bran, Catelyn, Brienne. I think Daenerys and Jon could also be done as big character analysis videos, which would be a huge undertaking to try and condense all of these chapters into one video. We sort of managed that with Arya, which I think remains one of the best videos. But trying to make a video about Jon or Daenerys, I think, would be very challenging. A Daenerys video would be better than a Jon video, I think, because, you know, this might be... not everyone might agree, but I think Jon is a relatively, dare I say, boring character. I think he's a likable character, a relatable character. He does what's right, and he's, you know, he's brave and he's heroic, and he overcomes obstacles, and he does his best, and he gets stabbed for it, and all of that's well and good. But I don't think that I don't see a whole lot of fascinating stuff to unpack there. I mean, you know, there is the stuff about, you know, love versus honor and all of that, and, you know, the legacy of Ned with Jon. And I'm sure later on, as John embraces sort of the more magical Azor Ahai sort of stuff that will happen later, there might be more complexity in his character then. I really like, by the way, the idea that John might not be a POV character anymore after his resurrection, because I think that would work with him becoming a more mystical, magical character. I think it could feel weird to be inside John's head while he's waving Lightbringer around. So maybe him becoming a no longer a POV character would be cool. But Daenerys, I think, could work really well as a character analysis video, because she does have like these really distinct and interesting different components to her character, like the whole sort of Misa mother thing, and then the whole sort of Targaryen violent mother of dragons thing, and all of the complexities of her visions and prophecies and plot, and there's a lot to talk about. It'll be a huge video, I think, but Daenerys could make a cool character analysis one. You know, Brienne would be great, Sansa would be great, Stannis. It would be fun to make like a in defense of Stannis sort of a thing, because like I think many show watchers have a very negative opinion of Stannis, which is fair enough based on his depiction in the show. Like the death of Stannis was so determined to make him out to be just like a totally unlovable bad guy. Well, not bad guy, but not a likable, relatable character. Like, you know, putting the death of Shireen right before Stannis's complete failure and death was a bit of a downer. So it might be nice to talk about Stannis from the books and why there are so many Stannis stans, fans of the Stan, on Reddit. Reddit has a huge boner for Stannis most of the time. They love him. And it might be cool to sort of tap into some of those ideas and arguments and talk about why Stannis is better than he appears in Season 5. Johannes points out that this is like years of Song of Ice and Fire videos. Yeah, that is true. There's a lot here. I don't think we're going to run out anytime soon. There's a whole list of topics beyond even this to talk about. So yeah, I'm not worried about running out. But I am mindful that after Game of Thrones Season 8, interest in Game of Thrones will wane. I'm mindful that, you know, the months before Game of Thrones Season 8 will be a time to make as many of the most like important, interesting, cool Song of Ice and Fire videos we can possibly make, because there's just not going to be as much interest in them after Game of Thrones Season 8. You know, obviously there's always Winds. We can always hope that Winds will come out soon, or will come out. I think the Song of Ice and Fire community is at the most cynical stage it's been at for many years at this point. George we do not hear many positive things about the Winds of Winter from George these days. So I think we all should hunker down and prepare for some Song of Ice and Fire-less years, perhaps. But hey, when and if it happens, you can be assured that Alt Shift X will be on it. There is so much to be done with a new Song of Ice and Fire book. I mean, all these bloody topics. We've done something like 80 Game of Thrones videos so far. I think that's the number. It's something like that, the number of Alt Shift X Game of Thrones videos. And here's another good, 40 or so, 30, 40 that would be also great. A whole new book would be it'd be many more videos, and it'd be so good to see the excitement breathed back into the community. All of that would be amazing, but it's best not even to think too much about how great that would be when it still seems so distant, I think. Yeah, as Johan says, many new video topics when Winds of Winter comes out. It'll change the whole tone of the sort of theory analysis community, because the point that we're at now, after Dance and before Winds, it does feel very much like a sort of a midpoint, like a sort of a like we're at the end of Act 2, I feel, and Act 3 is about to begin. And I think this is the moment when the most balls are in the air. Like, there's the most plot threads left hanging. Like, the theory community, you know, in between, say, Clash and Storm, there wouldn't have been as much to talk about simply because there weren't as many characters, there weren't as many plot threads. We're probably at the moment of greatest complexity now, I would think. So it would be interesting to see what the sort of theory community would be like after Winds comes out, because I imagine that Winds will answer a lot of questions. It will sever a lot of plot threads. It will have to, if the next book, if book 7 is going to be the last one, which, again, a lot of people are skeptical about. But yeah, it will be fascinating to see the way that the community changes and the whole sort of theory world changes. Obviously, a lot of the current theories and ideas here will become, you know, possibly irrelevant or totally different after the book comes out. So that's another reason to get these done sooner than Winds. But yeah, no, I think we've talked enough about these topics. There's obviously a lot of really cool stuff to talk about. And in between now and Game of Thrones Season 8 is, I think, the best time to talk about it. It's the best. When I say acts, I mean out of like 3 acts, is, I think, how people usually mean. Anyway, so yeah, lots of Game of Thrones stuff to talk about, and we'll be getting into a lot of it after Westworld Season 2. But I also want to do more other series, because, like, having done a little bit of Stranger Things, having done Westworld now, having done even Annihilation, I feel like if we can do videos on those things, good videos, and I think we have done good videos on those things, I feel like we can kind of do videos on anything at this point. And I really like the idea of doing videos on some of these, like, nerd classics, like some of these stuff that's not necessarily current, but stuff that's been really influential and loved for a long time. And these 6 are all topics which I think fit into that category. Dune, a lot of people love, and which is having a bit of a revival at the moment, I feel. Dune, I confess, I still haven't read Dune. I know a bit about it, but I haven't read it yet. But I would love to just delve into that and make a video about it. I have no doubt that it would be worth at least one video. I'd imagine doing a single video on the first book, because the whole series, as I understand, gets really wacky. There's a lot of crazy stuff happening in the later books, which we wouldn't necessarily go into. But yeah, a Dune video would be great. I've done some looking at, like, Google Trends and stuff. I don't think a Dune video would get many views. It isn't searched much. It isn't talked about much on the internet, really. So I don't think a video would get many views, but it would still just be great and cool. So if enough patrons were interested in it, we would do it. Fabian points out that in the original outline of A Song of Ice and Fire, George Martin said that there'd be 3 parts. There'd be the Game of Thrones between the Starks and Lannisters. Then Act 2 would be the invasion of Daenerys and the so-called Dance of the Dragons, which didn't end up happening in the book, The Dance of Dragons. And then the fight against the White Walkers would be Act 3, or Book 3. And yeah, we are well off that path. I feel like, you know, unless George intends to write a 15-book series, he is going to have to cram those things into... he is going to have to cram Daenerys' invasion and the fight against the White Walkers towards the end, because, like, a 15-book series is not going to happen. He can't do all of the things that he wants to do. I think, yeah, no, I'm not going to go too down that rabbit hole, but yeah, no, George has some writing to do, is all I'll say. Rega suggests doing some kind of a book clubby sort of thing on June. That would be cool. I feel like I'm conscious though that there's a YouTuber called Comic Book Girl 19 who literally just did a June live stream book club. And I don't want to copy her. I mean, we're already walking in Comic Book Girl 19's footsteps because she, as I understand, was like the first Game of Thrones theory YouTuber, basically. I mean, Alt Shift X hasn't been around that far back, really. But back in the early days, she was like one of the first to talk about Game of Thrones on YouTube with success. And so I don't know, following following her again by doing a June book club seems slightly ridiculous. But yeah, no, the idea of doing some kind of book club thing is definitely still percolating. We percolate slowly here in Alt Shift X, but something like that could happen, absolutely. And I'd like to do June. People talking about The Expanse in the chat. Yeah, The Expanse, I'm hearing a lot of good things about. Also haven't seen that. I need to see and read more things. I see and read so many things. I need to do more. The Expanse, I've heard a lot of great things about, and it has recently been uncancelled, I hear. Like, The Expanse was cancelled, and then it was picked up by Amazon or someone now. And everyone says it's, like, the best TV sci-fi that there is at the moment. Which does sound great. I suspect that it's not so well brewed. Thank you, Cardinal. Nicest thing anyone's ever said. I think the Expanse, it's probably not popular enough to get like a lot of attention on YouTube. But it's, yeah, again, like, I mean, that's I've said it before, but the thing that's great about Patreon is having the freedom to not give a fuck about views. Like, a lot of, like, YouTubers are strange people. There's a lot of neurotic fixation on what's popular, what's trending, what's going to get the most views. And, you know, rationally so, because that's how you get paid. And YouTubers need to eat, and YouTube is a famously unstable, unpredictable place. So there's a lot of jumping on what's popular. And what I love about Patreon is that it allows Alt Shift X to do weird, obscure, less popular stuff like, you know, June, The Expanse, whatever, without having to worry too much about views. So I've said it before, but thank you, patrons, for making that possible, because being able to do obscure stuff sometimes is great. Speaking of, I haven't got a thumbnail, but The OA is really cool. It's a show on Netflix called The OA, and it's like this sort of trippy, mysterious, psychological story about this woman and some other people who get tangled up in a whole strange series of situations. It's one of the few shows that feels legitimately weird and legitimately like great at the same time. In recent memory that I've seen, and yeah, I just really loved The OA season 1. And I think you guys should totally check it out if you haven't seen it. I would love to do a season 1 explained of The OA. It's really not very popular. Which would be fine if the patrons were behind it. I'm not sure if all that many patrons would care about The OA, but maybe it's something we could bring up at some point. Because that's the other thing, like, it would require, like, a good, you know, month's worth of work, probably, to do a video on The OA. Any whole new series involves a bunch of work. But when Season 2 comes out, might be... Well, that's the other tricky thing. Like, you want to release videos about the series when there's new stuff coming out about the series. But the OA characteristically has been mysterious and vague about when the new season's coming out. There's no official release date for Season 2 of the OA, so I can't plan around it, which is a little frustrating. The other thing is that after trial and error, I've learned that it's best to release like Season 1 explained immediately after Season 1 ends. Like the Westworld Season 1 video that we did, which I'm really happy with. It actually would have been better to release that immediately after Season 1 finished, if possible, because it just gives it the longest time of being relevant, and end up with the most people actually getting something out of it. So it would have been better to do the OA Season 1 explained immediately after Season 1. So I think next time some new show comes out and we've got to do it, and I want to do a video about it, you just got to jump on it right away. So expect that to happen at some point. But yeah, The Expanse, yeah, I'll have to watch the first season and see what it's like. And now that it is renewed, it'll be a good time to think about doing that. Although I'm not sure, like there's a bunch, like they're in like the 3rd or 4th season now, right? So I don't know if you do like The Expanse seasons 1 to 3 explained, which would probably be impossible. It'd probably be a huge, ridiculous video. Or maybe you could do like a Expanse season 1 explained, but who wants to watch season 1 explained of The Expanse when they're up to season 4? Or you could do an explainer of the most recent season or something. Or maybe you could just jump into like... I mean, you wouldn't do like weekly The Expanse videos, I wouldn't think. I only expect to do like weekly explainer videos about like really sort of like tentpole, big, complex, cool shows like Game of Thrones and Westworld. Westworld, I think is sort of on the... Westworld, I think, is like right on the sort of line, right on the edge of like whether it's worth doing weekly episode reviews. Like I love Westworld. I love doing these weekly videos. But sometimes the explainer, like the individual weekly episodes, feel like, is this entirely necessary to get across everything that happened? And also in terms of popularity, it's just sort of just on the line of being worth it. You could get away with doing just like a season 2 explained or something. It's tricky to tell when it's worth doing the weeklies or not. Hellas Oyster asks for opinions on rhubarb and cranberries. Cranberries, 8 out of 10. I mean, they're a bit sweet, but they'll fight the UTIs, so that's great. Rhubarb is traditionally paired with custard, isn't it? Isn't that how rhubarb is consumed? That's what I heard. Rhubarb's an enigma. It's a mystery to me. We've got a lot of strong rhubarb opinions in the chat. I'm glad to see some passion about rhubarb. We could really talk about anything here on Alt-Shift-X, couldn't we? Cardinal Doomsday says that they are far behind on Westworld. Well, I've got a solution for you, Cardinal, because as it happens, Alt-Shift-X has videos explaining Westworld episodes quickly and concisely. So, you know, you could get onto those. Reggae harvested 3 kilograms of rhubarb today? My god. That is a lot of rhubarb. What are you going to do with 3 kilos of rhubarb? Anyway, this is Alt-Shift-X, and here we stay on topic. And we've sort of got a little time left that I'd like to spend quickly on Westworld. I've got some Westworld hot takes for y'all. So let's run through some of these thoughts. What do you guys think about Westworld season 2? It was the thing that I love about Westworld is that it's ambitious. It's trying really hard to do something big and heavy and complicated and visceral. It's got to be the most ambitious big show of now, right? Like, is anyone else trying this hard to do something big and exciting? So, like, I applaud Westworld for their ambition. And I think there are times when there are these moments when it works so well. I loved Ford's speech at the end. I loved all of Westworld Season 1, Episode 10. I loved the way Maeve came to consciousness. I enjoyed... I mean, the massacre bit was not so good, but Dolores's reach for consciousness. That William's discovery of the maze was a bit of a downer when it turns out that, you know, follow the blood Oreo to the place where the snake lays its eggs. That didn't mean anything, did it? So that was kind of a downer. But there are these moments when Westworld achieves what it's trying to do, which I think is great. But there are also times when it doesn't. And Westworld Season 2, I feel like, is just sort of walking that line, walking that knife edge. I feel like it really could fall flat on its face in the end, or it could do something really cool and exciting. Fabricate425 says they hope that the Bernard reveal will be something surprising, not that it's Teddy's consciousness. That's maybe... I love... There's this theory that Bernard this season is actually Teddy's consciousness in Bernard's body. And I love that theory in the same way that I love D plus D equals T. I think it's absolutely possible that there's. I think it's probable that there's something weird going on with Bernard in the week ahead timeline, that he's actually Arnold or something like that. Um, but guys, I don't think it's dirty. But I think there has to be some kind of big reveal with Bernard, because they are going so hard on the visions, the flashbacks, the brain damage. Like every scene with Bernard, they're playing on like, whoa, something's up with Bernard, something's going on, which is fine if it adds up to something. Like the timeline shenanigans in season 1 was good. It made sense because it let us see the story from the point of view of Dolores. That was the point of the weird timeline jumps. We had the same disorientation and confusion, the same journey that Dolores went through. And for that reason, I think the timeline jumps in season 1 are absolutely justified. Hayless Oyster says that if the story's strong, you don't need to get froggy with the timeline. He thinks that the way that they try to be confusing is borderline insulting. Yeah. Well, I think for season 1, it did. There was a purpose behind the timeline jumps. So I think it's fine. And you know, the shock of young William being the Man in Black. I think that's fine. But the Bernard thing, I'm not really seeing what the narrative purpose of the timeline jumps and the flashbacks and the strangeness and the unstuck in timeness of Bernard is. Because Bernard as a character, like this season, like he feels like the camera that rides, right? He feels like he's not really doing anything. He's just sort of following where Ford seems to want him to go, or just like investigating things with Elsie, but he doesn't really have a clear goal. Like with James Delos, he just like stumbled onto, okay, here's James Delos, but he didn't really do anything definitive there. He just participated in something that was already happening. And with Abernathy and Dolores, like Bernard isn't doing anything, which is okay, but it's it undercuts any kind of like narrative thing that's going on with him that might justify the timeline jumps. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm struggling to imagine how the time uncertainty will mean something for Bernard's character. So I'm worried that there won't be a payoff for Bernard in season 2. We'll have to wait and see. I suspect that today we will find out something significant from the I won't spoil anything, but from the like episode preview thing about the next episode, it's pretty clear that we are going to be finding out stuff about Bernard and the idea of like some kind of simulation. So I am really excited to find out what that will be, and I'm hoping it'll be something that feels like it makes sense. Alice suggests that Bernard was kidnapped by how do you pronounce it? Tralfamadorians. Is that actually it? I think it's actually spelled different to that. Anyway, maybe we should do some Vonnegut videos. We haven't really done any like straight up book analyses. Like we've done, like what we've normally done at Alt Shift X is done things that are based on books that have movies or TV shows going with them. And I think that's kind of a match made in heaven, because it means we have visuals to work with. Like if we tried to do a video about a Kurt Vonnegut book, we would not have any visuals really, which would suck. Would make it a lot easier to make, but it would not be very pretty to look at. But we could try that one day. Just do like a book explainer, a book analysis, a book review. That might be an interesting thing to do on Alt Shift X. It might be something that's better to do as like a podcast or like a book club type thing. And a book review probably wouldn't get many views on YouTube anyway. But just do it as like a podcast. Might be fun. Anyway, Hayless Oyster says that Vonnegut owned a Saab dealership in his hometown. Cool. Rager is concerned that we might have too many ideas on videos. Yeah, no, there is no shortage of video ideas. This stuff is just the tip of the iceberg, really. There's so much stuff we can do. The only limiting factor is time. There's only so much time. Anyway, Westworld hot takes. We're gonna finish up the live stream pretty soon, but I just want to chuck out some more Westworld hot takes. Dolores, A lot of people don't like Dolores this season, because she is just going around killing people, and she's not very nice to anyone, and she just killed Teddy, and she's hanging out with the masked men who are part of the Wyatt storyline, and, Dolores is talking about being free, but she's suspiciously acting exactly like she would be acting if she was following the programming of Wyatt. So, what's up? How do we... Dolores in Season 1 was totally relatable because she was someone trying to understand the world, trying to orient herself, trying to become conscious, just as we were in that, as viewers of that season. Dolores was great in Season 1. Season 2, she's just not... We don't even understand what she wants or why, really. She keeps saying that she wants to take over the world because that's the only way for robots to survive, which is sort of okay, I guess. But all we actually see her doing is going around brutalizing people. Dolores Stoneheart, Cardinal Doomsday says, that's an interesting comparison. They are similar, aren't they? Because Stoneheart is someone who was formerly an entirely relatable, likable character who just became a totally merciless, brutal killer. That's an interesting comparison. But Dolores, I don't think that's what the creators want with Dolores. I think Dolores is meant to be still a likable protagonist, but she's just currently not. And so there's sort of two ways that I can see this resolving. So there is the theory that the Bernard of the Week Ahead timeline is actually Arnold in Bernard's head. An idea that I like is that maybe, if that is Arnold will come to Dolores and will sort of remind her that, hey, maybe you shouldn't kill people. Because Arnold is this compassionate figure. I love the dichotomy between Ford and Arnold in the early days of Westworld, how Ford is this sort of controlling god figure, who's sort of cold and merciless early on, whereas Arnold is warm and compassionate in comparison. And I could see Arnold being playing a mentor role for Dolores in the later half of this season, saying hey, maybe don't be such a Terminator, and then maybe he could influence her, and that would be part of the point of Arnold re-emerging, and that might help Dolores be a better character. Maybe that would be cool. And I think the other alternative is that somehow we justify all of Dolores' brutality. We have some kind of reveal at the end relating to the Valley and Glory and all that, which makes Dolores' actions make sense, because she has said that, what she's doing is part of some sort of plan. She said that she's seen the future, she remembers everything, I'm going to use it as a weapon, the Valley Beyond, she has some kind of ideology. She doesn't tell us what that ideology is, which is why she's totally unrelatable, but she claims to have a plan. And if that plan all makes sense in the end, and somehow oh, she's killing all of these hosts and people because they're going to be resurrected in some new greater form at the end, she's merging the humans with the robots, and so all those people that she hanged are actually going to be part of or something, maybe there's some kind of massive switcheroo which would explain it all, but I don't know. Yeah, Fabricate says that I think they need to have someone who represents the anger of the treatment of the hosts. Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, vengeful violence is to some extent understandable, but I find the degree of Dolores's violent vengeance to just be excessive. My real concern, my worry, is that maybe the showrunners, the creators of Westworld, they really actually think that Dolores, as presented, should be believable and likable. Maybe we are really meant to root for the Terminator, which I hope isn't the case. And I hope it isn't the case that people do agree with Dolores. I hope that there aren't people watching going, yeah, that's a reasonable thing to do. Go out and murder and torture people because of the horrific treatment of the hosts. But I don't think that justifies further killing and suffering. And I hope that audiences don't think that, and I hope the showrunners don't think that. I have got a one of the foundations of Westworld is this deep cynicism about humanity. The idea that if we were given true freedom, quote unquote, we would murder and rape. If we were given a simulated world where we could do anything, all the guests apparently want to do that we've seen is kill and fuck. And I think that's a really cynical, depressing vision of humanity, and I hope that it's wrong, and I hope that people don't agree with it. but that seems to be the idea that Dolores' sort of character is founded on, that humanity needs to be punished, and it's a bit tedious eventually after so much violence. The moment that I think was a bit of a downer last episode was, Maeve has this great awakening. Maeve has this moment of, I found a new voice, I've got a new power. And the way that she uses this new power is to slaughter all of these Shogun World hosts, which is like, did she have to make all those Shogun hosts kill each other, or could she sort of like just ask them to go home, Like, she didn't actually have to slaughter all those people, right? Like, Maeve is meant to represent, a true freedom and a true, more ethical path in comparison to Dolores, and yet she's totally happy to just cause a bloodbath at the end of last episode. But then she says, I've found a new voice and here we use it, and it's like, wow, great, she's got a new power, how is she going to use this influence? And then she picks up a sword. She picks up a weapon after saying that she was going to use her voice. Why is her voice a weapon? Why doesn't she have a way to express herself? Why can't she find some way to express herself as a character without using a weapon? Why does it have to be killing? I think there's a lack of imagination in this story when it seems like all that the characters can think to do to each other is kill. I think it's boring when it's done too much. So I hope to see some kind of change there. I do love the idea with Maeve that maybe she will use her mesh power, her new voice power, to awake other hosts. I love the idea of her, waking lots of hosts to consciousness at once and becoming like a sort of a messianic figure who might steal Dolores's thunder. Could be cool. Which would be a lot like, Aegon the Sixth turning up at Westeros to steal Daenerys's thunder, or the other way around. That would be cool, sort of rival messiahs. But, I'm not really sure that's where they're going. The other thing about Maeve is that I think she is the most sort of relatable, likable protagonist at the moment. Because, she's told us what she wants. She wants to find her daughter, and that's an idea that we understand. And, we wanted to find her daughter, but I think it would be a bit underwhelming if the season ends with, she finds her daughter and it's great, and that they love each other and they're happy, and then they go off and do some other stuff. I think that would suck. Because Westworld is trying so hard to be like a philosophically challenging series, to some success. So I feel like her finding her daughter needs to be something that sort of undermines her confidence. I think Maeve is overconfident at the moment. She seems too powerful. She seems too certain. So I'd love to see her go and find her daughter, and what she finds is, oh, there's actually a dozen different hosts that have been used in the role of Maeve's daughter, and they all have kind of like different personalities maybe, or like different appearances or whatever, or just somehow her, memory of her daughter is different to the reality. Something that challenges or undermines her assumptions about how simple and easy the relationship is going to be. Something to give the philosophy a punch, because because I think it's cheating if Westworld does all these great speeches about, Shakespeare and God and the meaning and consciousness and who am I, who are you, whoa. I don't think that any of that has a meaning unless it actually affects the characters in a direct, dramatic way. And I think Maeve's discovery of her daughter is a great opportunity to do something like that. So I feel like a lot hinges on like the last few episodes of this season. I feel like Westworld Season 2 could be a triumph, or it could be pretty underwhelming. It depends on these last few episodes, I think. Gemma, that's a great idea. Maybe Maeve's daughter will have a new mother host, and she would, right? Of course. Why don't I fucking think of that? Of course, Maeve's daughter would have a new mother by now. Because if Maeve's daughter still exists as a role at the homestead, then Maeve must have been replaced when she was taken off that role. She must have a new mother, and that mother might not want to give the daughter up to Maeve. Maybe that could be the sort of philosophically complex thing. Or, maybe like the daughter just will choose not to go with Maeve because she doesn't recognize Maeve. She recognizes her mother. And then Maeve, with her voice power, would have the option to like rewrite her daughter's code and make her like Maeve instead of her new mum. But if she's ethical, she'll choose not to do that, I think. and maybe that's sort of what is going on with Akane and Sakura, where Maeve allows, you know, Akane to keep her current relationship with Sakura. Maybe that sort of semi foreshadows that. Something like that, I think, would be great. Alice says, since Westworld and the other worlds are on an island surrounded by the rest of the world, how can everyone or anyone have a happy ending? Yeah, that seems to be something that has to be resolved at some point, is how will the hosts of Westworld relate to the outside world? The outside world, like, you know, Ford has a speech in season 1 where he says, how do you expect the hosts to be received if they declare themselves as conscious beings? Do you think there'll be ticker tape parades? People aren't going to be happy about the rise of the Terminator race. So yeah, that seems like something that has to be acknowledged. Although I don't think Westworld plans on facing that anytime soon. Like there's been talk in like interviews and things. They seem to want to make Westworld like a multi-season series. Like they talk about, oh, there's so much to explore, so many parks. You know, season 3, season 4, season 5. And I think facing the real world surely has to be like a later, like a end of series sort of a thing. Because, like, you know, once the hosts are out in the real world, how are the parks even all that relevant anymore? You know, yeah. See you, Fabricate. Thanks for tuning in. So yeah, I don't know. But yeah, one sort of last thing. Is William as one of the as the only human protagonist of this show. I find his arc is weird this season. I thought he was kind of interesting last. I think the reason why he was interesting in season 1 was kind of because of his role as like a counterweight to young William. Like sort of the point, as I see it, of young William and the Man in Black in season 1 is to support this thesis of human evil. It's to show that, hey, look, humans really are fundamentally bad. Because, like, the only good guy human, young William, turns out to be, like, this fundamentally corrupt Man in Black. And now that we've proven that point, it's kind of like, okay, well, what do we do with the Man in Black? If the Man in Black is defined by just cruelty and evil, what do we do with that now in season 2? How do we make that interesting? And I think what the creators have done is they're like, okay, well, the way that we make evil interesting is that we try to redeem it. We try to see if we can erase the evil and make it better again. And I think that's why we had this reign in Las Mudas, where, you know, supposedly William was redeeming himself with the people of Las Mudas by protecting them from Craddock. Which, again, like, I think it's kind of gross that the way that the Man in Black atones for past violence is by new violence, you know? Can't they find some way other than violence for the Man in Black to do something good? But anyway, like they have that sort of redemption, and now I think the point of his relationship with Grace, I think Man in Black facing his daughter is definitely meant to be a path for him to try and face his past evil, and better himself and make peace with his demons, and that is a good way. I think that's a good way for the show to try and redeem the Man in Black. I think that's actually a meaningful, compelling way, would be fixing his relationship with his daughter. So that could work. That could be cool. But I don't want the end of his arc this season to be like, okay, well, you know, William's kind of a good guy now who we should kind of like, because he's, you know, dealt with his past and now and what's his next mission gonna be? I don't know. Like his whole idea of his quests is weird. Also, they haven't talked about the door like at all ever since episode 1. Was it episode 1? I think it was episode 1 where William talked to episode 1 season 2 where William talked to young Rob Bot, the young Ford robot, and the young Ford robot was like, you have a new mission, you have to get out, you have to find the door, and William's like, great. And he and the door has never been mentioned since, if I recall rightly. So you can sort of choose to assume that, okay, the door must be related to the Valley / Glory / Judgment / Dolores' weapon / the question that must never be answered. Whatever that whole conglomerate amalgamated mystery is. Maybe that's what the door is. I think that's a reasonable assumption at this point, given that the door has not been mentioned since episode 1, and we know that the big mystery is a mystery with many names. So maybe the door is just glory. But then again, the door is meant to be a way out. How is glory a way out? So that sort of is the last big question for me. Yeah, I agree, Kenny. I think glory has to be the door. Hellas Oyster says, just give William a cancer backstory. That's instant redemption on TV shows. Yeah, there's a lot of really trite, tropey ways that it could be done, and I hope they'll find something more interesting. But yeah, I think the final big sort of point on which Westworld Season 2 hinges is glory. And like, you know, I'm very consciously trying not to get too invested in the mystery. Just like Lost, which I haven't finished yet, just like Lost, I know that the great big mystery, it's not the point. It's more about the characters. It's not about the big mysteries that you uncover. It's about the friends that you make along the way. That's what is the case usually with mysteries in series. And yet, the show is trying so hard for us to be so intrigued and so convinced that glory / the valley beyond is something so significant, so profound, so central to the themes of the series, that it has to have a good payoff. It has to have a good payoff. But I've got a feeling that it won't, because I just, you know, I hope to be proved wrong. I hope desperately to be proved wrong and to be wowed by this crazy, philosophical, relevant, amazing thing that glory is. But I don't see it happening, to be quite frank. So, you know, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. We're just going to enjoy the next 5 weeks of Westworld. We're going to keep on making these weekly videos, and we're going to make the most of it, and we're going to find what meaning we can, and hopefully it'll be great. And even if it wasn't, I've enjoyed the last 5 seasons. I hope you guys have episodes. I hope you guys have enjoyed the last 5 episodes. And regardless of what happens, we have some really cool Game of Thrones and non-Game of Thrones videos ahead. So, thank you all so much for participating in this live stream. Thank you all so much for being patrons and making it possible for us to do these videos. If you have any last minute questions, chuck them now in the chat and we'll answer them. But yeah, Westworld, I think Westworld Season 2 is good. I think. I feel like it could change. I feel like when the last episode comes out, maybe we'll have a different opinion. I think it is entirely possible that the climax of Season 2 will kind of suck and it'll be a downer. And that'll be disappointing. But I think it's also entirely possible that it will be great. So let's see what happens. But regardless, lots of other cool stuff ahead. Thank you, Rega, Alice, Oyster. Cheers, Advar. She sends her regards. Did you lock Swift up in the closet again? Swift's gone rogue. I don't know what Swift is doing. I wash my hands of anything that Swift might be up to. But some people have been asking nicely, so maybe Swift will be allowed to broadcast again sometime soon. Kenny Arnold says, "What's your opinion on the current state of YouTube?" There's there's an uncontroversial topic. It's funny, isn't it? Like there are lots of jobs and lots of workplaces where people get fucked. There are lots of workplaces where people get screwed around. And there might be, I don't think there's any workplace, any job, that has more of a platform through which to express their discontent than YouTube. YouTubers are people whose job it is, most of the time, to express discontent about things. Is kind of the main thing that a lot of YouTubers do. And so naturally, when YouTube does something bad, you hear about it. When the people who make the trains go are unhappy, you might hear something. When the people who pick the oranges off the trees get unhappy, you might, miss citrus. But when the YouTubers get mad, oh boy, if you go on the internet, you'll know it. I'm rambling. YouTube does fuck with people a bit. HBO, or actually technically Warner Brothers, because they are apparently like the production house for Westworld. They have been copyright claiming Alt Shift X videos, and we keep on contesting the claims, and they end up releasing the claims. So it does get straightened out eventually. But during the period of the videos being claimed by Warner Brothers, apparently the videos are restricted by platform. Like there's a little text somewhere that says that they're restricted, who can see them, but it doesn't say how it's restricted. And I'm assuming that it's nothing major, but like it's probably something like people on mobile can't see it, or people on like weird platforms like, you know, Xbox or tablet or something can't see it because it's related to advertising. Some bullshit. It just sucks that you go and promote the show and you celebrate a show, and then the creators of the show fuck with you and make it harder for you to do your job. Is basically what's happening. It's not a huge deal. Like they're not taking down the videos entirely, and the monetization does get turned back on. So like it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's just an unnecessary pain in the ass that doesn't help anyone, as far as I can tell. And you'd think it would be pretty easy to sort out. Like if Alt Shift X was just put on like a whitelist somewhere so that we didn't get claimed every single time or something, would be nice. But I don't know. It's not very interesting for me to sit here and bitch about YouTube. I think that there absolutely is a lot of validity to the complaints that people have about YouTube. But I think also YouTube is kind of amazing in the fact that it even exists. Like the fact that anyone in the world can post any video and anyone can see it is great. And like there are all sorts of bullshit happening with like monetization. But you know, it's kind of amazing that people take it for granted that they can monetize videos on YouTube. Just the fact that you can put videos on YouTube at all is pretty great. And you can still do that. Like as far as I've heard, YouTube doesn't delete or take down videos almost ever, unless they're doing something like legitimately like illegal or something. So you know, the monetization stuff does suck. It is sometimes tricky to, you know, make a job on YouTube, but the fact that anyone can make a job on YouTube at all is a miracle. So I don't know. I'm sounding like a YouTube apologist, and you know, I'm as mad at YouTube as anyone, but I'm grateful that it exists and this job exists. And all right, I think we'll wrap up the live stream. Thank you all for taking part. We're gonna run the gauntlet again quite soon when the new Westworld video episode comes out in just under 8 hours. I'm excited to finding out what's happening with the Cradle and Bernard, and we'll get that video out as soon as we can. What else? Is there other housekeeping? Oh yeah, like with Patreon rewards, like I'm sort of thinking about making there's a Patreon reward for some of the high up patrons giving access to draft scripts of the videos. Like while the videos are being made, they get an incomplete script that I'm working on, which they can give like feedback on and stuff on. But there aren't many people who can access that. It might be cool to make draft scripts accessible to like a lower tier patrons, because I think you guys could totally like, if to the extent that you're interested, there could be people saying like, hey, here's something you got wrong, here's something you missed. You could be part of the production of the video in a way which could be fun, I think, and might even help make, you know, the videos better and stuff. So like maybe, yeah, but also like the scripts are like these giant PDFs that are kind of awkward. And anyway, this isn't interesting to hear. I'm going to sign off. Thank you all for taking part. Oh, well, the Discord, actually. Yeah, no, the Patreon Discord is something that I like. Probably should have started doing it ages ago, because like there was this moment where everyone was like automatically added to the Discord before the Discord was at all set up, and then only now I'm trying to make the Discord a thing. But I really like the Alt Shift X Patron Discord as a place to just chuck little bits and pieces about the current video production as it's being made. So I think you guys should get on that if you're not already. All right, I'm tired. Okay, thanks, guys. Have a good one. Thank you for supporting. And we'll give you an update on the next video as it comes out. Cheers, guys.